everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we'll be talking about an important microorganism called the protozoans. So first let me define what protozoans are. Protozoans are single-celled eukaryotes, either free-living or parasitic, that feed on organic matter such as other microorganisms or organic debris. So this means that single-celled means that they are not multicellular, meaning they do not form in colonies, and they basically occur by themselves. And eukaryotes means that their DNA is enclosed in a nucleus, which I'll be posting a video later about the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And they're free living or parasitic. Free living meaning they just float around and feed on. They can also do uh, they can also use the sunlight as some paramecium do, and also they could be like feed on other organic matter such as other microorganisms, and um basically what and parasitic meaning they could take resources away from other animals. So basically these protozoans are characterized by the way they move. So one way is the amoeba, which basically how they move is they use these false feet, which are kind of these pseudopods. They're called pseudopods in Greek. That means false feet. And if, as you can see here, pseudopodia, which basically is kind of like it stretches it out. It stretches the pseudopodia out, and because of that, these the things that are in the back, the recessive pseudopodia, also have to move forward, and so basically it like moves like that. It basically like kind of stretches itself out and then pushes together. So kind of like inches, like kind of like an inchworm, kind of like that. So there is inside that there is a gel. There's also obviously they have a cell membrane to cover the outside of the amoeba, and so there's a food vacuole which will basically secure food and nutrients for them, and then there will also be um, a water vacuole which also takes in water. Obviously, the purple thing in the middle, it's basically the what it does is it's the nucleus, and that's where all the genetic material is. And these they can reproduce asexually or sexually. There's uroid, which stores all the excess waste. Plasma and ectoplasm, which are basically like filling inside the amoeba. That's basically an overview of amoeba. Basically, these guys move with false feet, which is, as previously explained, it's just it's kind of like the feet is moving forward. It's like inching its way forward. There are also paramecium or ciliates, more commonly called ciliates, and as you can see here, there are these things called cilia, which Cilia, and basically it moves by floating, like drifting these things. So it kind of pushes its way through with these cilia, which are these hair-like things on the outer part of the body of the paramecium. There's a vacuole here. This is another vacuole. DNA stored in here, nucleus. There are a lot of different things here. There's a lot of vacuoles, and there are some all other like there are also mitochondria to and because paramecium can also use some paramecium can also use sunlight as well. And then there's obviously a place to um, excrete its waste here. So then, last but not least, we have the sporozoites, and sporozoites are basically parasites. They don't really do anything. They just move around. They don't have any main mechanism. There is another type of protozoan that called flagellates, and they use a flagella to move. Flagella meaning it's kind of like a tail to move. It's kind of like the paramecium, except it doesn't have hairs on the end. It has a tail in the back to kind of push its way through, to glide, to swim through. And basically, these sporozoites are different from flagellates. They just don't really have any, um, severe. They don't really have any main way to move, which is pretty. You know, it's very kind of sad, but main thing that it does is it just takes over. It takes over organisms. It's basically like a parasite. So speaking of that, if you did not know that malaria, which often causes like lots of deaths every year, or around 500,000 deaths around that every year. Um, they are caused by sporozoites, which are obviously protozoan. And malaria, what it does is malaria is carried by a mosquito, and it's not the mosquito biting you that kills you. It's the mosquito has these sporozoites like inside of it, inside its body, and the mosquito kind of transfers that malaria to you. So the malaria, which basically scientifically known as Plasmodium falciparum, which basically that's the main like Plasmodium type. It's just Plasmodium. It's If you say Plasmodium, most of the time people will recognize it as malaria. And so basically that the Plasmodium uses the mosquito as a vector to move from place to place. And since the mosquito, specifically the female Anopheles mosquito, so it's actually not in every single mosquito you have, although Anopheles mosquitoes are quite common in many places around the world, and they traveled over ships, and they are now most of them a lot of them are present near the Mississippi River area, near that area. There's also many. Most of it's in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, and there are also some in Asia too. Yeah, and they're also spreading to a lot more places because of our human influences. Because these mosquitoes, they just kind of like hop on board, like the ships back in time when we used ships. Nowadays we're using airplanes, and also airplanes are also a quicker way to transport. These mosquitoes can just hop on a plane or something, like get inside a plane or get inside a ship back when ships were primary way of transporting things. They could use that and move across places. So that's how during the slave trade in uh, the horrible slave trade that happened from you know the during like the 1700s, like the triangle trade. um that's when these mosquitoes kind of hopped on board and kind of spread to North America. Yeah. So this is basically it's like a overview of how what the plasmodium actually does. So here you can see there is a plasmodium here. Basically, when when it takes a blood meal, the mosquito, it can also spread between human to human. So it ingests the gametocytes. Gametocytes are basically what happens is the mosquito has these things called um, sporozoites inside it, and then the sporozoites will go to infect the liver, and then the liver cell, basically that's where it develops into this thing called a schizont, and the schizont ruptures these cells, and then they go into the bloodstream. And so after this they keep on rupturing these things until they reach into a trophozoite, which is a ring stage. And after this trophozoite, it goes into a gametocyte, and then it can spread from mosquito to humans. And this is just a this is just a graph from CDC. And so basically, there have been many, during the 20th century, it could average like around 3 million deaths per year. In the start of the 20th century, there was a lot of deaths in for relating to malaria, but malaria was really prevalent as time went on, because people started having, there's this thing called a quinoin, or it's basically comes from the bark of a South American tree, and basically it kind of disrupts the cycle of this malaria, and it basically renders it kind of almost, it's kind of like a cure, almost like a cure to get rid of the malaria. And so the malaria kind of got resistant to it, meaning it acquired new mutations in its DNA to become resistant. And so and during the 1980s, 1990s, it peaked again because of around like 1 to 3 million deaths every year. And because of that, they because of the so malaria kind of like got back to its level. And then now, so then after that, the World Health Organization went and tried to do an um, you know, uh, international mission to combat malaria, and basically they reduced it down to around 600,000 deaths as of last year. 600,000 deaths, around 600,000 deaths a year, and it's hopefully it will keep going down unless malaria, gets a new mutation to make it really, powerful. So that was my presentation and video on spores, or on protozoans. Protozoans are also very important because they add an extra layer to the food web, which I'll be talking to you about in a later video. And the food web, which it helps animals basically pass up energy as it goes up the stages. And these protozoans are very important in that also. So protozoans are all around us every day. There are only a few that are dangerous, like malaria, but malaria needs a place to, needs a mosquito, and mosquitoes only mosquitoes are like in warm, moist areas. So if it's really cold, they'll probably die. So mosquitoes, so that's protozoans. And hopefully you can get to see my other videos, which are on about microbiology, bacteria, fungi, viruses, etc. And hopefully those will give you a newer understanding. I hope you learned something from today and in today's video. And yep, see you next video.